Okay, we will start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So nice to have you. Nice to see you, Lois and Penina. So glad to have you also. From Lakewood, we have Lakewood, Baltimore, Israel, people from all over. It's amazing. Welcome. Let me just admit some more people here a second. And Dale, I see your beautiful picture of the back, but I'm trying to tell exactly what it is. So you can unmute and tell us what the beautiful picture is.
So I want to get it where you can see, maybe I have to push myself out of it. It says Vayikra at the bottom down here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then over here, it talks, I have to move this. It's always backwards. There you go. I don't know if I can make it bigger. And it says, and the Kohen, whoops, I'm moving my head the wrong way. There we go. And the Kohen, it talks about the sacrifice. I can't read it.
Okay, that's so great. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
I'd have to make it bigger. I don't know if you guys can read it because it's just tiny on my screen.
Yes, actually, I can see it.
Okay.
It's so nice. Thank you very much for bringing that for us. And it's so appropriate because we are finishing the book of Vayikra. So this Shabbos is a special Shabbos. It's a Shabbat Chazak, because we will finish the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. And at the end of every book of Torah, we always say Chazak, Chazak v'nitazek, strength, strength, and let us be strengthened. And as I said in my email, and we need it. This is a Shabbos where we need some extra strengthening. So it's a Shabbat Chazak. It is also a Shabbat Mivorchim. It is also the Shabbos where we will bless the new incoming month of Sivan, because we are getting very close to the holiday of Shavuot. And the holiday of Shavuot, of course, is in the month of Sivan. And so we are progressing. We started off in the month of Nisan. We went to the month of Iyar, and now we are going to be coming into the month of Sivan. The announcement of the new month. And then Rosh Chodesh itself will be this coming Wednesday, will be Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So interestingly, our sages always point out that there is a progression. Not only are we counting the days of Sfirat HaOmer, of the counting of the Omer, starting from Nisan to Iyar to Sivan, but there's a progression in the astrological signs. So we start off in the month of Nisan is the lamb or the goat, which was of course, the god of Egypt that we sacrificed for the Passover offering, like to eat their god. That message is very clear. So it starts off with the lamb, the goat, but also lambs are considered, even those of us who maybe never ever raised a lamb, all the songs about lambs, it's like, Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. We're talking about an animal that's considered passive. Now, you may personally have been attacked by a lamb. I don't know if that's true or not. But when you think about animals, the lamb is kind of like the most passive. It kind of like goes where the shepherd tells it to go. It's very passive. The next astrological sign for the month of Sivan is the bull, is Taurus. Okay, is the bull, and that's the work animal. And it says the work animal is one that is much more assertive. Nobody has a song, Mary had a little bull. That is not a song. That is something that's talking, that is work, and the ox specifically is the work animal. And it says it's the animal that when the yoke is on it, it can achieve tremendous amount, or it could cause a lot of destruction. But has to do with the ability to harness the animal nature, which is the bull and the work. And then we get to the month of Sivan. And the month of Sivan is the astrological sign of Gemini, is twins, for those on who have twins. The twins, so twins is the sign, and that is a person. Those are people. So it goes from passive animal to work animal to people, which shows our progression as well, that we're taken out of Egypt as God's flock, basically, of sheep. And then we do the work of Sivan, of the bull. And then we come to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, and hopefully we come as a person. But what's also interesting to note is we don't come as one person. It's not an astrological sign of a person. It's the astrological sign of two people. And twins, as we know, people talk about they have their own language, like even when they're born, they like to sleep and be like kind of all cuddled together. They like to be close to each other. And the month of Sivan is about the closeness of the Jewish people. So you might remember in our song of Dayenu that we sang at our Passover Seder, that one of the verses, the Kohen shall bring it near to the altar and rip off its head. Okay, we're not going to dwell on that. Okay, thank you. We'll stick with the beautiful picture. Okay, it's supposed to be a bird if it's about its head. Okay, that we said at the Passover Seder for Dayenu, we go through each of the verses. One of the verses is, if you would have brought us to Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, Dayenu. It's like, well, wait a minute, that's not really Dayenu. That really wouldn't have been enough. The whole point of our leaving Egypt was to come to Mount Sinai, to receive the Torah, to be God's people. So how in any way, shape, or form could we understand that coming to Mount Sinai without receiving the Torah would have been enough? Very famous line, one of the most famous lines in the Torah. It says that the Jewish people came to Mount Sinai, Vayichan Sham, that they encamped there, Tachat Hahar, under the mountain, or Keneged Hahar, at the mountain base. What does it mean? Vayichan Sham, it says in Hebrew, that's the singular. They encamped as one. And the commentary on it says, Ki ish echad belev echad, as one person with one heart, that there was no more disunity, that everyone stood there. And they think about, like, from Hashem's perspective, you have 3.5 million Jewish people who aren't fighting over anything. There were no machlokeses, there were no fights, there's no separation. Everyone is standing there. And the way the Jewish people stood, and there is an artistic rendition of this, I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it, that shows that the Jewish people standing at Mount Sinai, like in columns, looking like a Sefer Torah, looking like a Torah scroll, and that they were each there, that there is this unity, but that each person is their individual person, but together each person combines with another person to create a word, and the words combine to make sentences, which combine to make paragraphs, which combine to make the Parsha, which combine to make the entire Torah. And we know how essential each individual person is because we know the halachas of a Torah scroll. If even one letter is missing or is not legible, the entire Torah becomes pasul. The entire Torah becomes, you can't read from it, you can't use it until it's fixed. It's like, we have so many letters, like we can really kind of we don't really need that letter. I mean, I have a chumash at my house, I know what that word says, I don't need to really have that. It's like, no, if there's one person missing, if there's one letter missing, it's all off. So the Torah itself represents the idea of the Jewish people, and the Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai. They themselves were a Torah scroll, because we say the number of letters in the Torah, the same as the number of Jewish people, of root souls standing at Sinai, that in and of itself was an accomplishment. This happens is, when did the Jewish people arrive at Mount Sinai? So if you go into your Chumash, or if you have a Tanakh, it is, let me get my right place here. They arrived Mount Sinai on page 401 in the Chumash, chapter 19, verse 1. Chapter 19, verse 1. In the 3rd month from the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, on this day they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. Okay, what day? The 3rd month. So we know that the 3rd month, that all months are counted based, not on Rosh Hashanah, but based on the month of Pesach. So Pesach, Nisan is the 1st month, Iyar is the 2nd month, and Sivan is the 3rd month. And when did they arrive? It says on this day, and the commentary, if you have it there, also says for verse 1 that they arrived. And when was it that they arrived? On Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Rosh Chodesh Sivan is when they arrived at the mountain, and that they were there, and then they had a preparation time before they actually received the Torah. What day is Rosh Chodesh Sivan in our Sphira count? Rosh Chodesh Sivan in our Sphira count will be day 45. On day 45 is when we reach Mount Sinai in a state of complete unity. That's where we are. Vayichan Sham, they encamped as one. So this number, of course, is going to be a focus of what we're going to talk about because of the 45 people who died so tragically in Meron on Lag BaOmer. That 45th day, that Rosh Chodesh Sivan, is the day that is about unity of the Jewish people, and that we reach that place. So there are easy ways to reach unity, and there are challenging ways to reach unity. Our goal is to reach it through camaraderie, friendship, etc. Sometimes, however, as we sadly see, we reach unity from a place of pain and suffering and difficulty, which is certainly what Lag BaOmer was. I still keep thinking that a week ago was when we were together here talking about Lag BaOmer, Rabbi Kiva, and starting over and never despair, that literally while we were doing this is when the people were dying. And, of course, we had no idea at that time. We didn't know. So those 45 neshamas were representative of this idea of the 45th day of Sfirat HaOmer, which was Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Now, obviously, it wasn't Rosh Chodesh Sivan when this happened because it was in the month of Iyar. It says, what is it that happens? Because the next thing that says, after it talked about the Jewish people getting there, it goes back and it comments in verse 2. It says, they journeyed from Rephidim and arrived at the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. And Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Vayichan Sham. All the other words are in the plural, that they, in the Hebrew, it says Vayisu, that's they traveled, Vayavo'u, they came, Vayachanu, they encamped, Bamidbar, and then it switches to the singular, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Neged Hahar. And there they encamped as one. So it's not as if everything else has been in the singular. It's only once they get to Sinai. And they have journeyed from Rephidim. And it makes a big point of saying that they came from Rephidim. What does Rephidim mean? Rephidim was a place, so it is it's related to the Hebrew word. It kind of sounds a little bit like the English. It means to separate. So if you take the PRD from Rephidim and just turn it into separate, instead of T, there's a D, there was a time of separation of the Jewish people. That says they were separated from God and they were separated from each other and they were squabbling. They were fighting. And whenever that happens, is what happened in Rephidim? It's like that's when Amalek came and attacked the Jewish people. They came and attacked the Jewish people because Amalek is always trying to cause difficulty, to keep us from getting where we are meant to go. It does sound like rip apart. Rephidim, it sounds exactly like to rip apart. Oftentimes Hebrew, just even the cadence of the phrase sounds like what it is. It's like, didn't even need to look it up. What does Rephidim mean? It sounds like what it is. It's bad, it's separated, it's ripped apart, it's torn apart. And that was the place where the Jewish people were. But now it says they traveled from there. They left that. And they came to Har Sinai and they came to Mount Sinai and they encamped there, Vayichan Sham. Now, this is my idea. I'm sure other people have said it, but the other word, Vayichan, the other word that is in that word encampment is the word chen. The word chen means grace. When you like somebody, kind of like a formal way to say, I like it, would be to say, it finds favor in my eyes. Ze motze chen be'enai. It finds chen. Or you might say about a person, oh, they have such chen, which is what they've been saying about every single victim from last week from Lag BaOmer, from the youngest to the oldest. It's like, oh, and this wasn't just, like, of course, their mothers think this. Mothers always think their children have chen. But this was like everyone who knew them, like, oh, they had such chen. They had such chen. It's like, what does it take? So it's like these were people filled with chen, with this graciousness. It's the root of the name Chana. which also means grace. So Vayichan Sham, so Helene, that was for you, and any other chen that might be there on board here. That is the chen of Chana, and it means to find grace. And Vayichan Sham is like, how did they encamp all together at Har Sinai? That's a lot of people. And they all were making room for each other. Vayichan Sham, it's like they found grace in each other's eyes. What does that mean? It's like when someone has chen, there was always like that kid who kind of got away with things because they were just so cute. Or even maybe you were one of those people, or you had a child like that. They're just so cute. It's like when somebody has chen, we forgive them. There's just something about it. It's like somebody who in the world has, what's the word in English? Someone has charisma. Someone who has charisma, it's like, you kind of forgive them because they're just so endearing. So when we have an approach of chen, and other people, motze chen be'enai, they find favor in our eyes, then we can have vayichan sham, and then we can have a camping there at the mountain, and then we can be united. But we don't tend to necessarily have that approach. We tend to have what's called, sarut ayin, squinty eyes towards other people, like, how do I not approve of you in one way or another? And it's the opposite of having someone find chen in our eyes. What's interesting is that the person doesn't change. It's what's going on in me. This finds favor in my eyes. It's the way I'm looking at you. It's not necessarily how you happen to be. It's the way I see you. People even say it's a face only a mother could love, a child that only a mother could accept. That kind of person says we should be feeling that way toward all of Am Yisrael, all of the Jewish people, so that they can find chen in our eyes. And only then can we really stand at Mount Sinai and receive the Torah. And it wasn't just like a nice to have, it was a prerequisite. The Torah is the inheritance of the Jewish people. It'd be like a parent handing something, a toy that has been meant, not that the Torah is a toy, lahavdil, handing a toy that's meant for the kids to share, let's say a swing set, but the kids are fighting and, one's pushing the other off the swing or kicking him off the slide or whatever. It's like, I'm not giving it to you. I cannot give it to you if you're going to be fighting. And the Torah is exactly the same thing. It's like, I can't give it to you because it is your collective. It's your collective inheritance. It belongs to no one single person. So the Vayichan Sham of standing there together was essential before the Torah could be given at all. And when they came there was on the 45th day of Sfirat HaOmer. That was the day where they were able to reach this place. And that 45th, it has another connection as well. One I learned from Darlene Schwartz, from Rebbetzin Tarshish, and also from others as well, but I heard it first from Darlene, which is that 45 in Hebrew is the word ma, mem, hey. And ma means what? And what is this ma? It says like, people are asking, lama, like, why did this happen? What happened? We started off going back at Pesach. That was how we started off. Manish tana halayla hazeh. What is different about this night? We always have questions when things happen. What? And the question is there are questions for which we are not able to have answers, at least in this lifetime. We're told in this world, there are no answers. And then in the next world, there are no questions. That we will have clarity and we will have, everything will be clear. So the example is given of people who are stuck in a traffic jam. They can't see what's going on. They don't know what's going on. But the traffic reporter who's in the helicopter hovering above everything, they can see the whole thing. They can see that the person who has the flat tire that stopped in the middle of the road is causing the problem. But the other people can't see it. It says, how do we even think with our little tiny vision, even if we lived for 120 years, it's a microscopic whatever. I don't understand anything. Why would I understand how the entire world is working? So we ask ma and we ask lama, why did this happen? But the better way to ask it is lama, for what? And what am I supposed to do? That's my question. What am I supposed to do in response to this? So I did share on Tuesday that one of the boys who was killed was from our son's yeshiva, from Yeshivat Shalavim. And it was just an incredible funeral that was live streamed, and there were over 70,000 people who tuned into it. It was just incredible. And the people talking about him who knew him in every way, shape, and form, also saying the same thing about him, of his chen, of the sweetness, his diligence in Torah, his kindness, his chesed, his devotion to everything and everybody, just like a person beyond his years. And his parents came, and his mother and father both spoke at the Levaya, at the funeral, and then they went back to New Jersey to finish sitting Shiva. And they asked, and they sent out a message to everybody saying, when you come, you can come and talk about how Donnie inspired you, of what you learned from him. Tell us stories about him or hear things about him. That will be comforting and welcome. Talking about the actual tragedy and how it happened and who was responsible and all the goings on, unwelcome and unhelpful. Don't do that. It says that's not just for sitting Shiva, it's really for all of us. It really is for all of us, unless you have been appointed by the Israeli government on the investigation team of what happened and how it happened. It's really, when I say it's not our problem, I don't mean like dismissively, it's not our problem. That is not our tafkid. That is not our purpose. Our purpose is to say, what do I do with this? And what we do is that we have a response, which is, how can I take the qualities that those people had and bring them into my own life and make a commitment to something? So there are all sorts of things going around of people are making commitments to take on something in their memory, but to also make their lives even more significant, to amplify, as the word is used now, amplify and magnify all these things. It's funny, it's like when we say in Kaddish, Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Yit Gadal means to make greater, v'Yit Kadash, and to make more sanctified. That's what we're doing. Our goal is to amplify the good, and we don't have to talk about the other things. And it's not out of being dismissive or disconnected. It's like, that's not where our energy is supposed to go. So there are Google Sheets and documents you can sign up. And the things you can sign up for are smile at somebody you don't know. This isn't like, I will, kosher my kitchen, which if you want to do that too, that's amazing. That's not that. It's like, I will smile at people, 2 people each day. I will be the first person to greet another person before they greet me. I will not talk during davening at shul. I will, whatever it is, I will learn for 1 minute a day, some small thing that's called a Kabbalah, to receive and to take on oneself in memory of these boys. And they have a whole spreadsheet. You can sign up and say what you're going to do. So it's very empowering. And then you see that's like this ripples out. As much as the tragedy rippled out, the aftermath also is rippling out of making this good. To answer the question, not lama, like why, but lama, for what? What am I supposed to do with this? The other piece of the ma has to do with humility. Now, I couldn't find it, and as I said, my computer is giving me difficulties, and I thought I knew where it was, and somebody on here may know where this is in the Torah. But at one point, Moshe and Aaron being attacked by the Jewish people, verbally, not physically, being attacked, there's a problem, and he answers with him and Aaron together, Va'anachnu ma, and we are what? Which was a sign of humility. It's kind of like, not like, what do you want from me? It's like kind of, who do you think I am? What am I that you are coming to me to ask this? This is considered of the highest level of expression of humility, is I'm what? Like, what am I? This ma and this humility is the other piece that is the 45. And that each of these 45 people were people who were incredibly humble, like Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm what? What am I? I mean, sometimes we have it as a joke, like, what am I, chopped liver? So we like fill it in because we are asking it because like, I really do think I am important. Like, what am I, chopped liver? But Moshe asks the question, and we are what? So Avraham, he said, I'm nothing but dust and ashes. King David said, I'm a worm, like I'm like nothing. But Moshe First of all, he didn't even use the word I, he used the word we. So Abraham said, I am dust and ashes. So already I is a something. And King David said, I am a worm. That's already a something. But when you have a ma, like, what am I? There's not even an anything there. And not what am I? What and we, what are we? Ma nachnu, ma. It's one of those two things. Maybe Dale is going to find this for us, or Rachel Mashori will find it for us, or anybody else can find it. This is the answer. It says that this was the sign of humility, and that this is also 45. And this was also the secret of Vayichan Sham. And they encamped there from a place of, like, what am I? So you can imagine everybody. So even think about when you go to a simcha, or you go to, if you've lived in Denver and you go to Choices or something, people are like, what table are you at? What table are you at? And of course, it's always like really nice if you're at the table that's like in the front or closest to the main speaker or whatever it is. Unless you happen to be somebody who doesn't like to be in big crowds, then you're happy to be by the door. But most people don't like finding out that they're at table 65, which is right by the door and the last people served. They want to be like up front. So that's the other thing that was amazing about the Jewish people of Vayichan Sham, is they encamped there, is nobody was saying that they should be closer to the mountain. Everybody was in whatever place they were in. Like however it was, that was fine. That was fine. There wasn't like, oh, even at a restaurant, like, oh, can you move me? Can you sit me not near the window, not by the kitchen, not by the bathroom, not by where the whatever. It's like all these things we have, like all these things of like what I deserve because of my lofty level. But instead of saying like, who am I? I'm like happy to just be here. I'm just happy to be here. Enough, Dayenu. And that was part of the Jewish people as well, and a part of these 45, these memhe, these ma people who were taken, is that they were people who just yielded to other people. They were very intense and focused in their own personal spiritual development, and extremely gracious and open and soft with everybody else. That's not an easy combination. Either people are just kind of lackadaisical about everything, or they're very intense about everything. And it's kind of hard to have this two different strategies, two different ways of being in the world. So when they found next to Donnie Morris, who was at Shalavim, and they found his schedule for the day, and it included, like by the 15 minutes, I don't know if it was by the 15 minutes or by the half hour of what he does in each block of time, of things that were required for yeshiva and extra things and daf yomi and this and another thing, and call grandma was at the bottom. That it was like, this is, Hillel has it also. Ma'ani, great, thank you. Pirkei Avot, thank you, Lois. Chapter 1, Mishnah 14, Ma'ani. Exodus 16:7. Let's see if we can find it. Oh, that's right. That's it. Exactly. Thank you, Dale. That is exactly right. But it's also nice to have, thank you, Lois, for the quote from Hillel as well. Ma'ani. And in the Chumash on page 385, or chapter 16, verse 8. This is when the people were complaining about the food, the manna, and the complaints. And Hashem gives you meat to eat and bread to satiety in the morning, as Hashem hears your complaints that you complain against him. And he says, for what are we? Not against us are your complaints, but against Hashem. So when the people are complaining to Moshe and Aaron, thank you. That is their response. Like, who are we? Like, we're the leaders. So it's not that people are denying their importance and significance, but there's such a thing as knowing our place. Now, this is not meant in the negative way of like, you need to know your place, and a woman's place is barefoot in the kitchen, pregnant or whatever. We're talking about that kind of place. We're talking about that everyone takes up a certain amount of space, your place, and that our job is to be in our place and not be in other people's places. Or you could say in other people's business, in other people's whatever. When we say, Ma tovu haleha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. one of the comments on it says that what was really beautiful about the way the tents were arranged for the Jewish people is nobody's doorway was looking into somebody else's doorway. It was private. There's a sense of privacy and respect and restraint and regard. And that's what relationships are made of. That you can have closeness, but there's also such a thing as privacy. And the only way to really be close, people think like, oh, I have to bear everything. That's how we get close. It's like, that's not how we get close. How we get close is to have a dynamic relationship of coming close, but also having boundaries. And that was the boundary of like, have your place. You don't need to know everybody else's business about everything. And I'm not talking about hiding things that should be brought out. God forbid, if there's domestic abuse or something like that, nobody should say, well, people don't need to know everything. It's like, there's some things people do need to know. But generally, we're supposed to have a private approach to our own lives. And if we're doing something, unless we're talking about it to inspire other people, it's like, Donnie wasn't going around telling the other boys in the yeshiva that they should be doing the same thing he was doing. Other people didn't even know. They only found it because they saw his schedule of what he was doing. So one of the things he also did is he participated on Shabbos afternoon. Our son Benjamin started a program that's called Hakol Torah. And it was for Shabbos learning. And it was to inspire the boys to learn on Shabbos afternoon and not just hang out in the dorm and go to sleep, which, they have a busy schedule 6 days a week. So it's not like it's crazy, but he wanted to inspire them to learn. So for every hour of learning, the people got a ticket, and then there was a raffle each week, and they got a certificate for a Jewish bookstore to buy some Jewish book. So Donnie participated in this every single week, not to get the prize. I don't know if he ever won the prize for the drawing, but he went every single week. So we just talked to our son Benjamin yesterday, and he is renaming the program in memory of Donnie. So now it's going to be called Shabbat Afternoon Seder. A Seder means like a period of time for learning. And the acronym is SHAS. So SHAS is also another acronym which stands for the Talmud, the 6 volumes of the Talmud, or the 6 segments of the Talmud. So it's being called Shas, Shabbos Afternoon Seder, with a smile, because one of the things that really characterized Donnie was that he was always smiling. He was always just happy and joyful. So now it's called Shas with a smile, and he's sending out things, and the people can make contributions to help pay for the prizes, and people can take on the learning too. You can just do it each week, whatever you want. So anyway, there are a lot of people doing a lot of things just to magnify and amplify the great qualities of the people who have passed away. And they are our answer. They are our answer. It says that our goal is to get from ER to Sivan. From ER, which was the time of the bull, of the working, to Sivan, when we get the Torah. It says, when did Amalek attack the Jewish people? I always kind of thought it was like right after they crossed the sea, but it wasn't, because they crossed the sea on the 7th day of Pesach. That's when they crossed the sea, when the sea split. But the Amalekites didn't attack until there's a debate whether it was the 22nd or the 23rd of ER, the 22nd or the 23rd of ER, as the Jewish people were getting closer to Mount Sinai. It says, when does our challenge increase? It says, just when you're on the verge of getting there. It's like, just when you're almost there, and maybe your enthusiasm has started to wane a little bit, but you're getting really close, then the obstacles really come up. This is why we have people who go to get PhDs, such as Cindy Wolf's wonderful daughter, Jessie, who just finished her dissertation. She will not be in the category. There's a whole category. It's called ABD, all but dissertation. These are people who go through all of the classes and everything for their doctorate, and then lose steam and do not get their dissertation done. So they'll say, oh, I'm an ABD. I all but my dissertation. It's like, well, I'm actually, without the dissertation, you don't get the PhD. It's kind of like an almost, but not quite. And it's like, so sad. You almost got there. Or people who have any kind of goal that they're trying to get someplace, and then at the end, they don't get there. not because of, I'm not talking about other people, other things that they can't control. That's a whole other thing. I'm talking about where we ourselves lose steam and where that Amalek, doubts, despair, I can't do it, it's too much, never mind, maybe I won't. That's that. So that's when Amalek comes in. And that was this past week. This was like, this week was the 22nd and 23rd of ER. Lisa's birthday was the 23rd, was on Wednesday. And that this force comes in to try to mess us up. It says that's when the Amalekites attack. Why did they attack earlier? It's like the Jews were too strong. They weren't in a place. They were whatever. They wait till they're at Rephidim. Okay, they start squabbling, there's complaining, is God with us or not? We don't know about this whole thing. And then the very next verse is, and Amalek swoops in. Okay, now they're ready. If there's like a little break in their armor, now we're ready. So this was a very vulnerable time right before Sivan, right before getting to Mount Sinai, right before getting to the Torah, right before getting to Shavuot. Because at this time, we need extra chizuk, we need extra strength. We come and we have this total tragedy happen to us. And yet the total tragedy has done something very bizarre and I should say bizarre, it always seems to happen. It's brought us together. So it's like, there's, someone said, well, what about all the squabbling that's going on in Israel with the elections and this group and that group? Is like, for a week, everyone kind of put it aside. It's like, well, we could even do it for longer than a week. Maybe we could do it longer. Like, let's even just try to get to Shavuos. It says, Mashiach, we can hurry things along and get to where we need to be as a community, as a people, but we have to first get to Vayichan Sham. We have to get to a place where we are encamped together. This does not mean approving of everybody. It does not mean that you share their philosophy, their perspective, or anything. It just means that we can stand together and have chen, that somebody else can find chen, can find grace in our eyes. And that when we do that, then we can stand together and we can be in a place, that is my place. So it's like, just think about if you could anthropomorphize letters. What if you had letters fighting over where they fall in a word? Or what if you had letters fighting about which word they were a letter in? I want to be a letter in the word Moshe Rabbeinu. I want to be a letter in the word Moses, our teacher. I don't want to be a letter when it talks about ripped his head off, for with the sacrifice. Or I don't want to be where it says, that if, there are a lot of things that are described in the Torah that you might not want to be that letter. And it's always funny when people raise money to write a Torah scroll, they're like, you can buy a letter in the Torah, you can buy a word, you can buy a verse, you can buy an entire Parsha. No one ever says, I'll take, where it says that when the people are out and they need to relieve themselves, that you need to bring a shovel to cover things over so that the camp stays clean. Nobody ever buys that verse. I can just tell you, nobody's buying that verse. It's like, I don't want to be a letter in that verse. But can I tell you that if a letter from that verse is one of the letters that is messed up, the entire Torah scroll is invalid. So to know our place is to be willing to be the letter of the word in the Parsha that God gave us. This doesn't mean, and we're supposed to be the best letter in there. Like, we're supposed to do our letter well. It's like, how do I know what letter I am? It says, well, look at your life. Your life tells you exactly what your purpose is. Whatever challenges are coming our way, tell us exactly what it is we're supposed to be working on. And our meta challenge is coming together in peace, is to have some achdut, to have some coming together, and to ask the question, Ma ani yachola lasot? What can I do? Not why did this happen? It says, and what if you found out why it did happen? What if you found out? It's like, well, really? It was because all those people were evil. You're like, oh, does that even do you any good? It's like, that doesn't even do anything for me. So let's say no, or there's no answer that even helps that. The only question to ask is, Ma, what can I do? That is the question. And that 45, and I read something else from one of the other mothers. She said her son didn't die young. Her son completed his purpose in this world. and that we don't know when we come into this world. We don't get to see the little sign on our back that says how long we're supposed to be here. We think that the average is, 70, 80, 90, 120 years. That's our guess. We have no idea. And so she said he didn't die young. He completed his task. And she said this was I forgot his name. Is it Aryeh? I'm sorry, I should have known this. That she even felt that he had a sense that something was going to happen. Not really know, but to know that his neshama was going to be leaving. That he kept saying, he was 13. I'm going to yeshiva next year. You're going to miss me. And he started coming home for lunch every day, even though he didn't usually come home for lunch. And they're like, your yeshiva is going to be like 10 minutes away. It's not like you're going to the other side of the world. He goes, I'm going to yeshiva. You're going to miss me. And he started coming home for lunch the past month. So we talk about that the tzaddikim, where are they? They're in the yeshiva lamala. They are in the heavenly yeshiva. They're learning with Hashem, and they're happy. And I know this sounds Christian to many of us. It's like, oh, they're in the arms of Jesus or whatever. Well, they got that from us. These people are with Hashem. Their neshamas are reunited, and we're the ones who are in pain. But it shouldn't be over the fact that they are in pain, because they are not. So they are in the yeshiva, and he says, I'm going to yeshiva, you're going to miss me. And that's how she, as the mother, is understanding this of his coming home, and that somehow he had a sense. Somebody else received a written down message, and the person said, open this on Sunday. And it was like all of these like aphorisms of like what people should remember and how to live, is like a little ethical will of they left of what they wanted people to remember and think about. And they handed to him at Meron and said, open this on Sunday. I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? So there are so many stories coming out, and we don't even know the half of it. So all we know is that there were these 45, these mem hey people who were so full of chen, and that they brought us all closer through the gift of the technology to allow so many people to share this, to have 70,000. Then I heard a report of 100,000. That was just for one of the funerals. You start multiplying this out, 45, and you figure like the max, all these huge funerals of people tuning in. I'm thinking we get to 600,000 pretty quickly, honestly, if not more, which is the number of root souls who were at Mount Sinai. Like, I think we have the possibility of Vayichan Sham, and they encamped at the mountain, and whatever it takes to bring us together and to look at each other with kinder eyes. It says all sorts of Jewish people were there because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he is called the rabbi for everybody. It's interesting because we focus on Rabbi Akiva. I didn't even know I knew that Rabbi Akiva's grave was in Tiberias, and then we went to visit it on our women's trip. But people don't go to Rabbi Akiva's grave the way they go to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's grave on Lag BaOmer. There are like 100,000 people there. That's a lot of folks. And those people there are from all walks of Jewish life, which is why so many people who were killed were from all walks of Jewish life. It says because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was everybody's Rebbe. And he's the rabbi who represents the unification of the Jewish people and of V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, you shall love your friend as yourself, because he was a student of Rabbi Akiva. He was the student in the new batch of 5 that Rabbi Akiva started over with after the other ones, that the 24,000 had perished. He started over. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of his star students who took to heart deeply the V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. The fact that these people all died basically at his grave, people are saying those people are all with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We believe that because they qualified. They qualified because that was their approach in their lives. They were V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha people. They were people who loved other people as themselves and lived it, however old they were, whether they were 13, 9, 45, 60, whatever they were. Those were people who lived that way, and they deserve to be with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the next world. So all of this is so above our ability. We don't have a prophet today. We have no way of knowing or understanding any of this, but our job is to really ask this question of what am I supposed to be doing? And it's not save the world, and it's not figure out the logistics of Meron unless you get a call from the government. That is not the what that we answer. The what that we answer is, what am I supposed to do? And I have part of my approach is also of same as Moshe is v'anachnu ma. And what am I? I'm supposed to be in my place doing my thing, reaching out to other people. That's my job. That is my job. You know, I said before that the parents had said, please don't ask all these other questions and talk about all these other things. It's not helpful. It's not unwanted, unwelcome. But people do it anyway. Okay, so people are doing it. I hope people don't at the Shiva, but people are asking all these questions or reflecting or saying other things. They're saying things like, the reason they died is because they went to Meron. And if they only wouldn't have done this, then this wouldn't have happened. Or God forbid, when somebody else passes away, if they wouldn't have been on that street corner, this wouldn't have happened. And we start playing God and figuring out what the scenario was that caused it to happen. So that's not what caused it. Those were the sequence of events, but it's not considered cause and effect. So I heard something this morning, from, it was in Yiddish, but translated into English, about a rabbi saying that, I forget what the custom is, whose custom it is, to not drink alcoholic beverages during Shiva, but as soon as the Shiva is over, is to pour a glass like of hard liquor and say a l'chaim. I'm like, I never heard of that. I wouldn't be doing that anyway. It's like, why? Why would you do that? Said, because during Shiva, you think really what we really call heretical ideas, which is that the reason this happened is because of this, this, and this. The reason they got sick, the reason they got shot, the reason this happened, the reason that happened. And it says it's all heresy. It's like, you're not God. And so it says we take a strong drink to like clear our heads from all of that nonsense that we were saying. It's like, that's not true. That's not true. So we get ourselves back on track and says, like, don't say that. It's not exactly like this, but it's a little bit like why a woman after childbirth brings a sin offering. It's like, what's the sin? Since when is having a child a sin? It's a beautiful, amazing, wonderful thing. We're counting on it. We are counting on it. So what's the sin? So in the days, especially before, epidurals, anything like that, says a woman during birth, while she's giving birth, can be in so much pain that she may curse her husband, like, why did you do this to me? She may say, I'm never having another child. She may say all sorts of things that she really is speaking from a place of pain, but not what she really thinks. So afterwards, she brings an offering, is like, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I really will do whatever I'm supposed to be doing here. So it's like we say things, and it's on one hand, God is like, I know you're saying these things because you're coming from a place of pain, but then you also have to get yourself back together and come from a place of getting your head back in the right place. And so for that, it says that people would have this shot of whiskey and just like, okay, clear my thoughts. Now, I don't know about you, but a shot of whiskey is not known to clear my thoughts, but maybe for other people, it's just like, wash away all of that narishkeit, all of that ridiculous stuff that we say. So with that, it says that we're going through such a challenging time, and we should be so inspired, first of all, by the parents and family members and friends of these people. It's just unbelievable. When I saw the message from the parents, I thought, okay, if the parents can be on this page, I certainly can be. Who am I? I don't even know this person. So this is a real word to the wise. It's like, if the parents themselves are saying this and they mean it, and they want people to say, take on something in memory of these people, but for the overall goal of bringing the Jewish people together, and let their deaths be purposeful. Let them be for the good, because that's what good means, is that it's purposeful and that we do something productive with it. And that is our goal. And the timing of this is like, we're trying to get to Mount Sinai. We're trying to get to Shavuot. We're trying to receive the Torah. If we want God to even give us the Torah, then we better be in a place of Vayichan Sham. We better be in a place where we can pull this together, and that these 45 people who had this chen about them, that we find, other people find chen in our eyes. And notice that it's our job. We don't say that we're out there to try to make ourselves more popular. It says our goal is to make other people popular, precious in our eyes, because then we are going to be like God. It says God loves, I heard this quote, I don't know where it's from. God loves the worst sinner more than we love the most righteous person. It says that there is such love, and that we are supposed to try and capture just a bit of that. Again, we don't have to like what anybody's doing. We don't have to like what they believe. We don't have to say comments from the parents. I have a text that I can send. I'll see if I can send it in the as an email. I have it from this other little boy's mother. And then there are also stories about people making Shiva calls, about secular Jews going to a religious person's house for a Shiva call and being like everybody being so nice to them and putting them in front next to the people, talk about place, in the front so they could talk to the parents, and the father saying, I want to be invited to your simchas, to these like people who are like they would have no reason to ever meet, let alone have this conversation. And it's just like all the possibilities that exist at this time. Our goal is to then, and as far as the mother from Donnie, I don't know if that's been written out. I just listened to the to her speaking at the funeral. So I'm sure you can find those, because a lot of people writing maybe on h.com is probably being written about. So it's just so inspiring just for ourselves personally, and how people are dealing with tragedy in their own lives, which I always find inspirational as well. And that it's possible to do exactly what we talked about 1 week ago today. No matter what, we pick ourselves up, we mourn, we pick ourselves up, and we move forward, and we start over, and we just keep making progress. Mount Sinai, it says that it's why is the Taurus, why is the bull the animal for the month of ER? This is because that kind of animal is capable of doing incredibly hard work. It's not a mountain goat that scampers up the mountain. It's an ox that plows, that goes through, that has to remove like the rocks that are in the way and the rubble and to dig down. They work hard. It says it's not easy to come to this spiritual place. We don't just like beam ourselves up. We have to go through a process, and it's work. It is work. But the results are that we get to a place of Sivan. We get to the place of the twins, where I can see myself, and talk about sharing space. Babies in utero, it's cramped enough. Put 2 of them in there, really cramped. And yet, there's room for both of them in there somehow. Somehow there's room for both. So it's like there is room for the other person next to me. And together we are letters, and we make a word. Oh, that's the other thing, is the letters can't touch each other. The letters in a word, one of the requirements is the letters cannot touch each other. That's considered a flaw, which is interesting. So it's not just if it's messed up that's missing, but if it's touching the other letter, is because everybody needs their space. They need what is their makom, their place. And you need yours, and the word is only valid if the letters are together, but not touching each other, not overwhelming or overpowering the other person. You have to be your own letter and your own word. So God willing, we can see ourselves that way. I wish we could just take enough, a photograph. There was a photograph of Donnie's funeral that was taken at Shalavim. And ironically, it was actually kind of interesting. It was taken from far away. I don't know how they took it, but since it was yeshiva boys, they were all in like white shirt. Well, they were all in white shirts and black pants. That's what they wear on Shabbos. Then the rest of the week they wear whatever they want. But everybody was in white shirts and black pants, and they were sitting in like columns. In fact, I could see even from the faraway picture, I could see my son because he was in the front corner on one of these columns. And I'm like, you could just picture, it kind of looked like letters. It's like they kind of looked like letters. I thought this almost looks like a Torah scroll. It's like all this black and white. It looked like little dots of letters all together at Donnie's funeral. So it was just so beautiful and so inspiring. And we have the opportunity to take all these lessons to heart. And I think the beauty of Judaism is that we absolutely give place and permission and space to grieve. And then we take it and we move forward. And that's our goal, is to take it with us. So on these 45 people, these Ma people, who are also always asking, Ma, what can I do? They ask this question, how can I help somebody? What can I learn? What can I do to be, helpful to someone else? They were Ma people. What can I do? What can I do? And also Ma'ani, Ma'anachnu is like, what am I? I'm just taking up my little space. I'm just doing my thing, and I'm just bring you in. And that is our goal. So God willing, by next Thursday, we will be in the month of Sivan, God willing, and we shall see that we are hopefully all at a place of closeness, and that we are preparing ourselves to really stand at Sinai, so that our heavenly parent can give us the biggest treasure of all, which is the Torah, which we all hold together in our hearts, in our minds, but together. And it requires Vayichan Sham Neged Achar, that they encamped with chen, for one another, toward one another, opposite of the mountain. If anybody has any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer whatever I might know, or comments, or anything else about what everybody has read, heard, anything at all. Andy, yes.
Can you give me the definition of Vayikam Sham?
Yes, Vayichan Sham means and they encamped.
They encamped.
Yes, and what's significant about Andy is that it should have said Vayachanu, and they encamped, as it did earlier in the sentence, where it says, hold on, just go back to it. Sorry. So before it says Vayachanu Bamidbar, that they encamped in the desert, and then the next word is Vayichan, singular. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, and that they encamped like that, and it specifically says Yisrael, which is also interesting. Like, who else would it be? Oh, we're talking about the Jewish people. This is already the Parsha. I mean, we know who we're talking about. So I think it's also interesting that it says Vayichan Sham Yisrael, because Yisrael is also the acronym for all of the matriarchs and patriarchs. And so Yud of Yisrael is Yitzchak and Yaakov. The Sin is Sarah. The Resh is Rivka and Rachel. The Aleph is Abraham, and the Lamed is Leah, which means it represents everybody. So this is also significant because we've had some issues of jealousy and difficult relationships from the Jewish people, not just when we were many people. It's not just the numbers. It's not just 3 million is a problem. We were having difficulties way back. If you remember Joseph's brothers selling him, like all these, the children of Leah, the children of Rachel. This has already been a challenge. But now we have Vayichan Sham Yisrael. Like, we don't need to know that in this sentence. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. That they were all together as one, and not like, well, we're from the sons of Leah, we're the sons of Rachel, and we're the sons of Bilhah, Zilpah. It's like, no, we're all one. So very, very powerful message in there. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Anybody
Fabulous.
else? All right. All right, ladies, I hope you have a wonderful Shabbos. It should be really a Shabbat Mevorchim. It should be one where the new month is announced, and it is a call to us to make the transition and not let the Amalek energy impact us, and to ride on the energy, with the tremendous amount of energy that has come from this disaster and this tragedy, and allow it to take us and kind of catapult us to a whole new place that we would not have reached without it. And that's how we give honor to the people, and that's how we really make sense. I don't like to say make sense. That's how we transform it. And the entire period of Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, has been a process of transformation. This is the ultimate transformation that we are trying to get to. We started off as a lamb, working hard as the ox, and we hope to turn into twins and stand next to each other. Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged hahar. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you, Ellen. Shabbat shalom.
Have a good Shabbos. Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Ellen. Shabbat shalom.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Roberta. I like your background there.
Thank you. That's from my deck, Colorado Springs.
That's, oh, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love
Need a
that.
Springtime picture.
That's right. I
Yeah.
hope it's not looking exactly like that right now.
There's snow up there.
Is there snow?
Well, thank you. Good to see you. I hope to keep connecting.
Wonderful. I hope so too. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tova, and bye, Esther.